Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Afternoon Tune. I'm your host, Josh, and with me is my co-host here.
Hello there, it's Nick.
And we got a nice special guest. Kasim is with us today. He's helping us out. We're going to be doing an MCU tier list. We're going to be ranking all the MCU movies. We're going to adjust it to when the Spider-Man movie comes out in December. So this is just, I've never done a tier list of the MCU movies before, so this is my first one. So it'd be nice to rank all the movies, just put up on a nice little list. So I've never done that. Have you ever done that, Nick?
I think I've done it a couple times. It's never been on the record, though.
Okay, so it's official now. So this is on the record. This is official.
Yes.
Official list. So this is an MCU tier list. Sometimes you'll see people do the tier list, by themselves. This is a committee tier list. So we'll try to combine our three brains together, make the ultimate definitive MCU tier list there. But yeah, man, it's a pleasure meeting you. Pleasure having you on. I'm glad Nick invited you. Glad to have somebody else on the show to talk about this MCU tier list, man.
So ready. Let's get it started.
All right, let's check this out. So we're going to go in order of all when the movies were released. So that's how we're going to be doing it. So the first one, Iron Man. Where would you put Iron Man?
To me, because I think that's the one that kind of started it all. Without Iron Man, you don't get stuff like Loki, like the Eternals, like Shang-Chi. And purely off of that legacy, I think it's an S-tier film. Also because for a movie that essentially doesn't have a script, it is so tightly, its narrative is so tight. You Robert Downey Jr. giving a career-saving performance and basically setting up the blueprint for, hey, we are actually going to do an entire shared universe of movies. And if you told like a 25-year-old me opening night of Avengers Endgame that I was going to see like Captain America wield Thor's hammer, I would have slapped you.
All right. So you're going to give it S tier.
I agree with that S tier. Ironically, I only think it's actually like a B level movie, C level movie, but because of the nostalgia, what it started, I'm going to have to go with S tier.
Yeah, same. And I can't even count how many times I've rewatched the movie, and I still get chills every time it's like that initial suit up scene. I still get chills every time I rewatch it.
Okay. I would have to agree. I would say, yeah, it's the thing that started it all. And a lot of that movie really was Robert Downey Jr., Jon Favreau flying at the seat of their pants, you know what I mean? Just kind of a lot of that just relied on, his personality and just kind of like the ad-libbing and everything like that. And it spawned this great thing.
Yeah, because that movie, they didn't have a script. They had like a very basic outline of all the stuff that would happen in the story. And then it would basically be up to Robert Downey Jr. and the cast to improvise their way to finished movie.
Yeah. So, yeah, I would have to go with that one, personally. So, yeah, so we're going to move that one into S tier. So S tier for me is the really great movies of the MCU. Like, I think, the really kind of great ones, personally. And then A for me would be considered, I think, really good. And then B would be good. And C would be kind of in between. D would be just fairly mediocre. So, for me, yeah, S tier for me with the first Iron Man. Okay, let's see. Next up is The Incredible Hulk with Edward Norton here. Where would you rank this one?
Yeah, it's kind of a B tier movie for me. This it feels the most disconnected from the MCU up until this point, and honestly, I think the movie moves too fast, and it kind of illustrates what's common critique with the MCU is it has a villain problem, and especially it's no more apparent than in that movie.
So you said D. You said
I said B tier.
B tier. Okay.
I said D.
Oh, you said D. Okay.
I said D.
D. And why would you say D there?
It's a boring movie. Like, I mean, I would love to see the Hulk go out in Hulk mode, but it gave us nothing extra. One of the reasons, in my opinion, why the MCU is so good is because, for example, Captain America, right? It's not hero slash spy movie. It's a spy movie where you happen to throw heroes into the mix.
Mm.
The Hawk is just, I don't know, the movie's boring. I'd rather watch Lou Ferrigno.
Okay.
And yeah, and I kind of agree with you that that movie probably has the biggest pacing issues out of all of the MCU movies. And I think a lot of that is owed to a lot of Edward Norton's interference with the script. Because I think he basically rewrote like 75% of the movie.
Yeah, I think a lot of his changes were for the better. You know, him trying to include more dramatic stuff, you know, more personal stuff. And I think there's even a scene that got cut because he wanted to have the scene where Hulk tried to kill himself in the movie, but they took that out. They took that out. So yeah, you know, he tried to do a lot more with that movie, try to bring a lot more to it. I guess eventually got him kicked off because his ass didn't come back for Avengers.
Yeah, Kevin. Yeah. The Mouse and Feige said, "Oh, this motherfucker's back." Mark Ruffalo, what's up, man?
Yeah. Let's see. So Kasim, he's at a D. Nick is at a B. I'm somewhere in between. I think it's between a C or a D myself. I would personally go with maybe a D. So I'm gonna agree with Kasim there, personally.
All right. Yeah, it's on the lower end of Marvel movies for me, but I still think it's one that there are elements here there that I enjoy.
Yeah, so I'll go with a D myself here. So we're gonna put it a D here. All right, so moving on from Incredible Hulk. After Incredible Hulk was Iron Man 2. So Iron Man 2, what were your feelings about this movie?
Honestly, I'd say this is probably my least favorite MCU movie. This is a very strong D for me.
I gotta give it a C, right? And it was just because memories with this movie, like we laughed a lot at this movie. Mickey Rourke, I mean, he did his thing. It was fun. It was a C. I think it could have been a good movie, but it just didn't come.
Yeah, I think the movie, it got distracted from by just a virtue of the fact that this is basically a 2.5 hour commercial for the Avengers.
Fair.
And it kind of forgot to tell Tony Stark's story in the film instead.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel kind of the same way. There was a lot of trying to throw in other stuff. Very much suffered from, you know, what people call sequelitis. Just a lot of just too much shit going on. Trying to set up all this other different stuff. Didn't really work. Mickey Rourke as a villain. Weak villain. Really waste of Sam Rockwell, who's an amazing actor, as Justin Hammer. You know, he's a character I wish would come back in the MCU and they would do something better with him. I think he's a really terrific actor. If you've seen any of his work,
if you've seen stuff like 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri, he's incredible in that. Stuff like Mr. Right, which is a very fun action comedy with him and Anna Kendrick, or basically just anything with Sam Rockwell.
Yeah, so yeah, he's amazing. But in that, they try to treat it as like Justin Hammer is the evil Tony Stark, but he's so incompetent that you can't even believe that he is, supposed to be like there's someone who is a comparable to Tony Stark because he's such an idiot.
Yeah, so he's basically just real life Elon Musk.
Yeah, who was in the movie? He made a cameo. I forget. Yeah, he made a cameo in Iron Man 2 in the dinner scene. There, him and his toupee. So that's very nice. So for me, Iron Man 2. I would go with the D myself. I would agree with Nick. I'm going with the D. There's some good elements. They try to do the demon in the bottle storyline. They fail at doing that.
They do it as much as Disney would allow them to do it.
Yeah. So for me, I'd go D. Next up is Thor. Where are you placing Thor?
Thor, I'd say it's a solid C. I think... Yeah, I'd say a solid C. It was kind of the first one that had a very well-developed villain with Tom Hiddleston's Loki, and definitely a star-making, iconic performance from both him and Chris Hemsworth. But I think the movie, it takes away its most interesting elements, that being Asgard and the world that is set up there, and throws it away just to hang out with Thor on Earth.
Not much to say on that movie. It was solid C. The best part of Thor 1 was Tom Hiddleston.
I think Thor 1 is solid. It's a solid origin movie. Chris Hemsworth, I mean, you know, I think he's fine. You know, first performance is Thor. They were trying to, Kenneth Branagh directed it. They were trying to do the whole Shakespeare thing. Comes off as kind of dull.
They were going for like this very high art, Shakespearean-esque aesthetic that just with the later movies, especially with something like Thor Ragnarok, it showed that was a mistake to put a guy like Chris Hemsworth in those shoes.
Yeah, you know, as recent times have shown, Chris Hemsworth has got a great talent for comedy. He's a natural comedic talent, and he does very good with it. Yeah, Tom Hiddleston introduced Loki, very good villain, one of the first good villains of the MCU. Anthony Hopkins as Odin does a very good job. You know, he's very solid. He gives that gravitas, that natural power to the film. Natalie Portman, you know, she complained that they didn't really do much with her character. That and also Thor 2,
which is a completely valid point.
Yes,
she's basically just tripping over herself to lay her hands on Chris Hemsworth's abs. Which, to be fair.
Yeah. All right. So me personally, I'd put Thor as a D, but since you two guys, you said C, it's going to be a C. So we're going to move Thor to C, and we're going to do that, me personally. But got outvoted there. But yeah, so we're going to go C. All right. Next up is Captain America and the First Avenger.
Yeah, this is A tier Marvel for me. This with Captain America, the biggest thing you have to worry about is you have to get your audience to like Steve Rogers as a character before he even touches the super soldier serum. And that's something that this movie does really well. And Chris Hemsworth, it's a lot of people, I think, write him off as just kind of this like tall, handsome, pretty boy actor. And the man has chops and range, especially in the latter half of his career with stuff like Defending Jacob, where I think he got passed over for the Emmys.
We literally had just come off of seeing him play a perfect Johnny Storm. Flips over to play a perfect Steve Rogers.
Yeah, so with Captain America First Avenger, I think it's, you know, also very solid. I'd put it C myself. Love Chris Hemsworth. Chris Hemsworth. Sorry, it's all these damn Chris's. Holy shit.
I mean, Marvel did get 3 of the 4 Hollywood Chris's locked under contract.
That's very, very true. The only Chris that they're missing is Chris Pine. They got all the Chris's except Chris Pine, basically. I'm expecting him to come in eventually. And everything like that. So, with Captain America First Avenger, love Haley Atwell. I think she's great in this. Always love to see her return. I think she's great as Peggy Carter. Loved her when she had her own show. They're even talking about doing Captain Carter, since people liked her a lot as Captain Carter in the What If series. So I would love to see, her return, and I think she's great. I think that Chris Evans, as Captain America is really good, really brings that, sense of Captain America out, when he's the, scrawny, sickly Captain America, Steve Rogers, before he gets the super soldier serum, I think is also great. Dominic Cooper, who is Howard Stark, is also very good in the movie as well, who plays, what's his name, in the film? Tony Stark's father. What's his name?
Howard Stark. You literally just said it a second ago.
Oh, did I just say it? Oh, Jesus.
Yeah.
Oh, my bad. Yeah, I just said it. Oh, Jesus, my bad. Howard Stark, so I think he does a very good job. Tommy Lee Jones is also solid in the movie as well. Still very disturbing. He ate milk with steak, but okay, that's very disturbing. Yeah. And Viggo Mortensen here is the Red Skull.
That was Hugo Weaving.
I mean, damn, fucking hell. Hugo Weaving. Jesus Christ. The other guy from Lord of the Rings. So he does a very good job as Red Skull here. And even though I think he also was another person who said he kind of had a bad experience working with Marvel as well. But very solid film. I thought Joe Johnston's direction, it makes sense to get him. He did The Rocketeer. It makes sense to kind of get him and everything like that.
That movie we talked about with Marvel going with different genres. Iron Man, it's more like the grounded sci-fi. Thor, it's magical fantasy elements, and Cap was more for those like 1940s serials aesthetic.
Yes, yeah. So that was a very nice choice. So I would say C myself. Nick, you said which place did you say? A, right?
I had it as an A tier movie.
And then Kasim, what did you have it as?
Hey,
A. So got outvoted here. I would have it as C myself, but since got outvoted, so we're gonna put Captain America at A here. Here we go. There it is. There's First Avenger. So we're gonna move it up to A tier. All right. Next up is the Avengers. Now, where would you all place this?
I would say it's still a solid A. Whatever personal things you have about Joss Whedon aside, I still think the movie had kind of the impossible task of living up to, like, almost like at this point, like 4 years of expectations of taking all of these different franchises and putting them all together in one movie, and it ended up living up to those expectations in the best way possible.
I think it's a C or B level movie, but it's S tier for the same reason I gave Iron Man S tier, because what it signaled was the beginning of a 10-year span with that Thanos that after credit scene right there. Boom. Phenomena.
Yeah, it set up the origin of one of the greatest movie villains of all time with Josh Brolin. Eventually Josh Brolin's Thanos.
Yeah. The Avengers, directed by Joss Whedon. I remember seeing it in theaters, being impressed. Like, wow, they actually did it, right? They actually brought everybody together. They did all these separate movies. They brought in everybody. Looking back at it now and seeing how far they've come, it's crazy to go back and look at all these movies that are now over a decade old now. I mean, the first Iron Man came out in 2008. Now it's 2021 now. It's like crazy to think that. And then
next year will be the 10th year anniversary of Marvel's The Avengers.
Yeah,
which is insane to me.
Yeah, so that's just crazy that it's been that long since they've done that. The Avengers, now looking at it now, it kind of does have a very TV look to it. I mean, Joss Whedon directed it. He had come from the small screen, and at that time, Joss Whedon was kind of a geek darling, nerd darling. It's like him doing Buffy and Angel and all those other shows, Firefly, and
off the strength of Buffy, Angel, and Firefly. And I think this movie came out the same year as Woods, which he co-wrote.
Yeah. So, and that also starred Chris Hemsworth before people really knew he was going to be Chris Hemsworth, Thor, and everything like that. Because I think
pre Marvel workout and steroid plan. I mean diet.
Yeah. You know what I mean? So you can't prove that. Can't prove it in court, that they do that. Yeah, I mean, so I think it has, but it is still very cool. A lot of moments. Love the circle shot. That's a great scene. They do the whole circle. They show everybody.
An iconic shot that has been paid tribute to and parodied in countless other comic book properties, even in this franchise.
Yeah. I would give it an A myself. Nick, you said S. Kasim, you said S?
Yeah.
Okay.
I said A tier also, but I see an argument for S tier, mostly just off of legacy of what this film set up.
Okay. So you're going to go with S?
Yeah, I'll go with S, because without the success of this movie, it was kind of every studio was looking at Marvel and Disney and saying that, I mean, come on, they're not really going to make an Avengers movie, are they? And then they did, and it made all of the money in the world. Yeah. And it kind of kicked off this new era of Hollywood where every single studio was trying to get their cinematic universe.
Yeah. And nobody has competed. Everyone's failed. Yeah, nobody's. All right, so since I would put it A, but both guys said S, I could see S, so we're going to toss it in S. I'm going to test you guys. Do you know what movie's next?
Iron Man 3.
Iron Man 3. You don't already have it pulled up, do you?
Yeah, I have a list pulled up.
Oh, okay. Damn. Oh, that's no fun.
Yeah,
you got already list pulled up. All right. Iron Man 3. So what do you all think about Iron Man 3?
Yeah, because you go ahead, because I may have a very controversial take on the movie, considering the platform that we stream this on.
I give it a D, but I kind of want to put it as a C because the Mandarin was kind of funny. But for the D for me, I didn't like it.
Okay.
Josh, what would you put it as?
For me, and I just had to put the video off screen there for a second because I just have to add this person real quick to the Discord. But yeah, for me, Iron Man 3, the more times I've gone back to it, I've actually liked it more, I've warmed up to it more. Before, I wasn't too big of a fan of it. I didn't really like the whole Mandarin thing, but they did retcon it. I did understand what they were going for with it, and everything like that. So it doesn't bother me as much anymore. And Shane Black doing a superhero movie, I think is very awesome. Of course, he worked very well with Robbie Downey Jr. In Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. If you've never seen Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, highly recommend you check out Kiss Kiss Bang Bang.
Kiss Kiss Bang Bang is the movie that got Robert Downey Jr. Iron Man.
Pretty much. You know what I mean. So. Very, very much so. So, I very much appreciate that. Now, this isn't Kiss Kiss Bang Bang Iron Man 3. It isn't as, I don't think, good as anything like that before. But it is still, I think, very, very good. For me, I would put Iron Man 3 in, I would say it's B or C myself. What about you, Nick?
For me, this is my favorite Iron Man movie. I think this is the one that I think has the deepest story because you're dealing with a Tony Stark dealing with post-traumatic stress after the events of the Avengers, which is something that not a lot of superhero movies, let alone blockbusters, are willing to go to the level of that subject matter that they do. And it's something that was going for something heavier thematically, and I think Robert Downey, Shane Black nail it. I think the twist with Ben Kingsley's The Mandarin, the longer I agree with you, Josh. The longer separation, the more times I've revisited the movie, the more times it actually works because politically, think about the time that this was going on. False flag operations were very much a thing in the news, and governments lying to people and people using figureheads to cover up terrorist actions. And that's something that really worked for me and still does to this day, especially after Ben Kingsley's comeback in something like Shang-Chi. And we've gotten the quote-unquote real Mandarin with Tony Leung.
Yeah. And they do make a lot of jokes.
Maybe I just got to go back and rewatch it. It's fun.
So, Kasim, where would you kind of put it? Iron Man 3, you said.
So originally I said D because I don't know. I kind of waved at a C a bit because I thought the Mandarin, I thought it was funny. Well, Ben Kingsley was funny in it, but I'll go back and watch it. But for now, I'll be willing to give it a C.
And then Nick, you said what was kind of score you gave it?
I was at an A tier for Iron Man 3.
A tier. I'm kind of at a B myself with Iron Man 3. I'd say a B myself.
We'll meet in the middle.
Yeah. So B. Put it at B.
Yeah, B works for me.
Okay, so we're gonna put it at a B there. Okay. So let's see here. Let me pull up Iron Man 3, and let me move it over there. And what is next after Iron Man 3?
After Iron Man 3 is Thor: The Dark World. Universally considered the worst MCU movie. Well, at least was considered the worst movie in the MCU.
Yeah. Thor: The Dark World. Where would you guys place this?
I'm kind of at a D with this movie. Besides the return of Tom Hiddleston's Loki and a lot of his interaction with Chris Hemsworth, especially after Frigga's death in the movie, that's all the stuff that really works for me and stands out. Everything else about this,
I'm willing to die on this hill. I personally will give that movie a B, right?
Okay.
But I'm willing to die. I'm willing to die on the hill if y'all can just at least give the movie a C, okay? Because that, I think it just set up a lot of important stuff for Loki's character, right? And I'm a Loki fan. It even gave Chris more, room in my opinion. And I feel like Ragnarok couldn't have been as good without Thor the Dark World. Because that little betrayal like feeling that Thor gets, I think it was super important for the fourth movie.
Yeah,
The third movie.
Yeah, with Thor: The Dark World, I think it continues with the Marvel weak villain, with the whole Dark Elves. But that was also the movie where Thor's mother also died in that, which goes to more of Thor's tragic kind of life in these movies so far. Losing his mother, eventually losing his father in the third movie, losing his best friend.
And something that worked, they allow you to feel the emotion in that, and they let you grieve with the characters.
Yeah. And it does show that Thor, really does, as he always does, care about his brother Loki, does love his brother, even though they have this bad relationship. But I still...
And I do kind of agree with you, Kasim, that it does set up stuff later with the character of Loki. And honestly, the later movies ended up kind of making me retroactively appreciate this movie a lot more. I think after seeing Avengers Endgame, Thor's conversation with his mother, it made that emotion, her death scene in the Dark World hit a lot harder for me. And especially after seeing Loki, you just appreciate more of Hiddleston's performance in all of the Thor movies.
Yeah. Even having said all that, I would still give Thor 2 a D, because I just think it's absolutely forgettable in a way. In a lot of cases, out of I do sometimes I'll rewatch all the movies before the new one comes out, just to see how everything just has come so far. And that one is always one I always struggle to remember afterwards, after seeing it as many times as I have. So for me, I know Kasim was fighting hard for a C with this one, but I gotta go D. I'm gonna go D with it myself personally, with Thor: The Dark World.
Yeah, same. I personally put it as a D, but even with as low as I'm ranking it, I don't think Thor: The Dark World is a bad movie. There are other comic book movies just this year that came out that I would put Thor: The Dark World over in a heartbeat.
Yeah. All right. Next up, Captain America: Winter Soldier. Where would you guys place this one?
Hey,
this is S tier, 10 out of 10. One of the greatest comic book movies, and one of the just greatest movies of the 2010.
Wow, that's a big statement. Kasim, how do you feel about it?
I think it's an A-tier movie, regardless of. You can take that movie outside of Marvel, and I think it's still an A-tier movie. It looked great. The story was great. The emotion in it was great. It was just a great movie. To be honest, I like Iron Man 2 more than I like Avengers 2. I mean, not Iron Man 2, but Captain America 2 more than I like the second Avengers movie.
Yeah, I don't think that's such a controversial opinion. I think probably a lot of people feel that way.
That's not a hot take. That's pretty much just the take.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think this is S tier. I think it's one of the few great movies that the MCU has. Love the act. This is when the Russo brothers, this is their first directed MCU movie. I think this contains one of the best action that the MCU has. One of the few kind of best action movies that they have. The whole spy thriller aspect is very cool that they have here. I love, they introduces Anthony Mackie as Sam Wilson. It's got some nice, kind of really good funny moments. The on your left thing, you know what I mean? That gets called back to a lot. Throughout the movies.
Setting up one of the greatest callbacks, like 6 years in advance.
Yeah. So that was kind of very awesome. Bringing back the Winter Soldier. Bringing back Sebastian Stan.
And this is the thing that puts this over to the S tier for me. I read Ed Brubaker's Winter Soldier comic. I knew what the twist was going to be the second I walked into the movie, and it happens, and it still emotionally works.
Yeah. Yeah.
If I know a twist is coming and it still hits, that is the mark of an S tier movie for me.
Yeah.
A twist.
Yeah.
Yeah, get fucked, Shyamalan.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's very effective. Nick Fury, Samuel Jackson does also a very good job in it. I think he does a solid job. The fight scene at the helicarrier, I think it's good. I mean, I don't think it's as, too much of the big action thing that they do typically at the end of these Marvel movies. I think it fits fine with what the structure of the movie is. I think it kind of fits fine. So for me, yeah, I would go with S tier myself with this. So moving it over into S tier with this one. Kasim, what is next up off memory? Do you know what came after Winter Soldier?
Isn't it Avengers?
There's one movie before it.
One movie before it, yeah. Yeah.
You got me stumped right there.
Oh, it is Guardians of the Galaxy.
Oh.
Yeah. The first. The first movie that
Guardians of the Galaxy was actually in the story that it always.
And just the first movie that James Gunn was given full creative control, along with like a couple $100 million budget.
Yeah. So Guardians of the Galaxy, directed by James Gunn. This was, I think, a big surprise. People say, like, well, why are you doing a movie about Guardians of the Galaxy? Nobody knows really who these characters are.
Even for like very hardcore Marvel Comics fans, Guardians of the Galaxy was a huge deep cut.
Yeah. So that was kind of a big surprise. And then it just blew up. I mean, it was a huge success. People loved Groot. People loved Rocket. People really loved, Gamora, Chris Pratt, Drax, Dave Bautista. This is where he really broke out. People really loved him. It was just this huge surprise. The James Gunn humor worked really well with the movie. I would have loved to see, though, Glenn Howard, who was from Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Glenn Howerton.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do kind of wish we got that alternate timeline of Dennis Reynolds as Star-Lord.
Yeah, that would have been
especially just considering how the kind of person that Chris Pratt turned out to be.
Yeah. I would have thought it'd been fun to see it. I like Chris Pratt as Star-Lord. I think he does a good job as Star-Lord.
I think he does well as Star-Lord, but this is basically the same character that he plays on Parks and Recreation.
Somewhat, I guess. Yeah, somewhat. Yeah. I mean, he's not as stupid as that guy, but yeah, somewhat.
Isn't he, though?
I think he's a little bit smarter. Kasim, where would you place Guardians of the Galaxy?
I'm gonna have to give Guardians of the Galaxy an S. There would be no Baby Yoda, Grogu for everybody without Baby Groot. I'm sorry. There would be no Baby Yoda without Baby Groot, and for that alone, S.
Yeah, I feel like I'd say this is probably in my A tier. The only reason that doesn't push it over the S is the villain problem with Marvel at the time, and it's like gun to my head, I couldn't even tell you who
the villain was.
I couldn't tell you who the villain was. I couldn't tell you yet about what that character was trying to do. All I remember is that we got Josh Brolin finally debuting as Thanos.
Didn't he show up as Thanos at the end of the Avengers? Didn't it, in the post-credit scene, right?
It was a different actor, and it was just a guy in makeup.
Oh, okay. Okay, he didn't say anything in that. Oh, that's right. He didn't say anything in that. Yeah, so this one, I think it's, for me, A, close to S. With the villain problem, Lee Pace is Ronan the Accuser. I think they know the villain is goofy and they play into that. I mean, they beat the villain with a fucking dance battle, so they know the shit's goofy. So they know is the shit's kind of the villain's, kind of the way he is, classic kind of villain. I mean, it's almost like, a lot of inspiration for the villain and for the movie itself is like Flash Gordon, and a lot of for that. So I think it kind of knows that. So the villain problem doesn't really bother me with that. Where am I gonna go? Am I gonna go S? Or am I gonna go A? I think I'm gonna go.
I feel like you should go S.
Go S.
Come on, like go S. This is the one movie where I feel like the whole issue with the villain problem thing doesn't matter because the thing they really wanted to get out of this movie was just the love of those characters.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, that I do have an issue with the villain. Also, I think the second one's better.
Okay. All right. So I'll go S. Guardians of the Galaxy S. All right. So next up is Kasim, like Kasim said, Avengers. Avengers 2. We have Age of Ultron. Joss Whedon returns to direct.
The Avengers, the 2 weeks of Ultron.
Yeah, you know what I mean. 2 weeks of Ultron. Tony Stark fucking up again, thinking he knows better. To be fair,
this is Tony Stark's villain creation origin story.
Yeah. How many villains?
This is the movie that where we said, shit, maybe this dude's got to go because he keeps creating villains that keep fucking up everybody's lives, especially like Peter Parker, as we will come to learn.
Yeah. Kason, where would you place Age of Ultron?
Give it a B.
B. Okay.
The movie wasn't anything special, but it did its job. It was, big explosions, fast movie, story that made sense, set up a lot of stuff for the future. It's that nice middle child that just does the job.
Okay. Nick?
I'd say for me, this is probably a C tier movie. I think visually it's a step up from the first Avengers. I think this is shot more like a film, whereas Marvel's The Avengers, it's shot like a television. I think it has one of my underrated villain performances with James Spader as Ultron. I think he's giving a performance that elevates what is probably on the page in one of the weaker characters. Also, this movie introduces Elizabeth Olsen as a Scarlet Witch, and Paul Bettany's Vision, who become so important down the line. But I think my problem is just that this is kind of like the middle child in between the first Avengers and Infinity War.
Thank you, Cal. Thank you for the 100 bits, man. Thanks for joining.
Hey.
Really appreciate that, man. Hey, thanks for showing up. Thanks you could stop by. Age of Ultron. So, Joss Whedon returning, I think a lot of high expectations coming into it. Him directing the first Avengers, it being a big success. Him doing a great job with that. A lot of people praising that. And I don't think it's as good as the first Avengers film. I think it looks better. There's some, now that the Avengers are more of a team now, you get to see how more of they interact, the dynamics between all of them. Who has kind of closer relationships. Something that I think you didn't get to see in the Avengers because they don't really become the Avengers until the last 30 minutes of the movie. So this one, I think there's a benefit to that. James Spader's Ultron, I think did a good job. I liked his voice for Ultron. It kind of reminded me how much I missed him when Ultron showed up in What If, and it was a completely different actor who voiced him. I was like, wow, I really kind of miss James Spader here as the voice of Ultron. I think he did a good job. I think a lot of this is just a lot of stuff. It's what Iron Man 2 suffered from. A lot of stuff going on because it's trying to stir so many different pots. It's like, okay, it's got the Thor storyline because it's trying to set up Ragnarok. It's got the stuff with Wanda and Quicksilver. The Quicksilver thing didn't really turn out to be anything because he turns into a bullet bag pretty early. And it's like how the fastest man, is going to get shot by bullets. It's like, okay. So it kind of has that, but it does.
Because we got a way cooler version of that character like a couple months prior in Days of Future Past.
Yeah, played by Evan Peters and as Quicksilver there. Also, it has the kind of awkward Bruce Banner and Natasha Romanoff romance that didn't work for anybody all that much. Then there was that whole weird line about her not being a woman because she couldn't have kids. That was also
her being a monster because she can't have children. I was like,
yeah.
Didn't you used to assassinate people?
I think it was kind of trying to say that what was done to her. I think she was trying to say also killing people and also kind of being this assassin was made her, not just simply she couldn't have kids, but it was awkwardly put and it was kind of bad. Also, there was that line by I think Tony Stark. Somebody pointed that out. Like Tony Stark, the scene where they're all trying to lift the hammer, and then he says like I'm gonna like when I lift the hammer, I'm gonna reinstitute prima nocta or something like that. Like somebody says like that's a like that was like an old rule or something like that when women could be raped or something like that, or I forgot exactly what the whole big controversy with that was. I have to go find that again. But there was like a whole issue with that. But but that scene was very fun though. The whole where they try to all lift the hammer. That's a fun scene. So there's different scenes like that. And then when Steve Rogers he tries to lift it and nudges, and you see Chris Hemsworth's face, he go, "Oh fuck," you know what I mean? That was a good funny cut there. that was pretty good. So that's cool.
No,
Yeah.
And again, setting up something. Setting up one of the bigger payoffs in the MCU years in advance.
Yeah. So I thought that was kind of very cool. So I would give it, I'd put it kind of C myself, Age of Ultron. Nick, you said what for it?
Yeah, I have it as a C tier. There are stuff that works about it, but especially in comparison to what comes later, this is probably the weakest Avengers film.
fair enough.
So I looked it up. So Prima Nocta was like this historical kind of thing where it says the right of the Lord to insist on sex with any bride under his rule on her wedding night. That's what it was, yeah. So that's what Tony Stark said when he was about to lift the hammer. He said, I'm going to reinstitute Prima Nocta. Yeah, so it was kind of a weird thing that was put in there. So for me, I would agree. I'd give it C tier myself. I think it's C, so we're going to move it on. Kasim, what is next after, could you remember what's next after Age of Ultron?
I've been trying to get him to get them straight off the memories. I'm shot.
Yeah, it is Ant-Man. Ant-Man is next. With Paul Rudd, directed by Peyton Reed. Originally, this was going to be directed by Edgar Wright. I would have loved to see this movie directed by Edgar Wright. He directed some of it before he left the project. You can still, I think, feel some of his influence involved.
This is one of the movies where, because we've heard stories about like directors coming in and finishing projects that were started by somebody else, and I think for at least this movie, I'm curious to see how much of Edgar Wright's draft made it onto the page.
Yeah. Kasim, thoughts on Ant-Man?
Easy C. I didn't hate it. I didn't care that much about it, but I'll watch it if it's on TV.
Yeah, for me, this is kind of like a solid palate. You just did this like big, potentially world-ending thing in Age of Ultron with his final plan, and now you're just having this fun, kind of quirky heist movie in between world-ending events like Age of Ultron and Civil War.
Yeah. It's something smaller to kind of start off before Phase 3 kicks off. And the Ant-Man movies are, I think the definition, I think when you point to like Marvel mid, I think you would point to the Ant-Man movies. They're perfect examples of that. Like they're fine, they're serviceable. You can, like Kasim said, you can have them on, watch them. You know what I mean? I think they're perfect. That this is the perfect description of C tier. You know what I mean? And it kind of is just like, yeah, it's fine. I like the stuff that they do with the shrinking stuff. That's cool. That's something. And they do some creative fight scenes with that, which they improve upon in Ant-Man 2, Ant-Man and the Wasp. Paul Rudd. I mean, hey, he's Paul Rudd. He's the sexiest man alive. I mean, hey, good for him. Shout out.
He's the sexiest vampire alive.
Yeah, he's the second oldest man ever to get sexiest man alive, behind Sean Connery, who got it in his 60s. You know what I mean? So great for him. Them rituals.
Sean Connery's voice got it in the 60s.
Yeah.
Good for Paul Rudd for winning that. And I think this is kind of the movie that I think comedy fans always knew that Paul Rudd was kind of awesome. And I think he does a great performance as Scott Lang. And this is kind of like the first time we see like legacy characters that we're getting in stuff like Hawkeye, of characters that have been other people before. And now we're seeing it again with the character like Hank Pym, who used to be Ant-Man in the movie.
Yeah. Yeah, with Michael Douglas, Scott. You know what I mean? I always love the way he says his name there.
Scott.
Yeah, Evangeline Lilly as the Wasp here. Hope Van Dyne.
As the MVP of this movie. Let's be honest. For me, it's either her or it's Michael Pena's as the MVP of the movie.
Yeah, I think Evangeline Lilly is one of the better romantic characters, love interests that they've had in these MCU movies. She actually, I think, has more of a valuable role than anybody else, like somebody like Rachel McAdams in the Doctor Strange movie, or someone like who else?
Natalie Portman in the Thor movies.
Yeah, Natalie Portman. She puts it probably right along the line of like Haley Atwell in Captain America. Very valuable love interest. Has her own agency. Is very cool in her own right. It's not simply just her. Her only value is just she's the love interest. She's the main character's love interest. I think she has her own cool things about her that makes her interesting. That they really do.
Yeah, and the movie makes it very apparent that she should probably be the one in the suit.
Yeah.
Because she is already so much more competent at this whole shrinking and fighting and superhero stuff than Scott Lang is. Even in the sequel where Scott is full-fledged Ant-Man and she is still, like, running circles around his ass.
Yeah. So we all agree, C?
C.
C? Okay.
Yeah, C tier. It's one of my comfort MCU movies.
Okay. After Ant-Man, we got... What do we got, Nick? I'll let you go.
We got Captain America Civil War, or the Avengers 2.5.
Yep, that's what a lot of people call it, Avengers 2.5. They just basically took Captain America's third movie, and I was like, fine, we'll just make it a Civil War movie. That's fine. This brings in the introduction of Spider-Man. That was a huge thing for a lot of people. The Russo brothers again come back to direct this.
This brought us Spider-Man and Chadwick Boseman's Black Panther.
Yep, and Black Panther. Yeah, rest in power to Chadwick Boseman as Black Panther. Enjoyed this movie a lot. I think this is very cool. Of course, this is heavily kind of a little bit diverse from the Civil War comic. And they couldn't obviously.
Yeah, I think it improves over the Civil War comic. I think that book works better in concept than it does in its actual execution. I just think Mark Millar, he's a good idea man, but he just doesn't know how to finish or write a story.
Yeah. Kasim, what are your thoughts on Civil War?
S.
S. Okay.
S there because of who introduces the story in it by itself is crazy. It's just a great movie. It's a good romance movie. It started the bromance.
All of the great characters that it introduces. Again, Tom Holland's Peter Parker, who I think is still my favorite Spider-Man. Chadwick Boseman's Black Panther. Who was up there for me with the greatest comic book castings ever, up there with Robert Downey Jr. and Ryan Reynolds. And also Daniel Bruhl as one of the more underrated villains in the MCU for me as Zemo, who we saw his turn in Falcon and the Winter Soldier. And he brought a lot of gravitas to a character that, in the hands of a lesser actor, I think would have just been a nothing villain.
Yeah. Again, with this, I think very good action. The Russo brothers delivered again, kind of with the action here.
Yeah, and great action. Second unit was done by Chad Stahelski, who directed the John Wick movies.
Yeah, so that's very, very impressive stuff. Like I said, the introduction of Black Panther, introduction of Spider-Man is very cool. I think, the face-off with Iron Man and Captain America was a good payoff. I think their fight's very good. I love that scene, when we all, because like I remember seeing the trailer for Civil War, and the last kind of shot of the trailer was them just beating the shit out of Iron Man. It was just double team. It was them passing the shield, and I was like, oh shit, this is good. This is getting good, and I thought that was great. And yeah, I mean, there was I think a lot of good back and forth between Chris Evans, between Robert Downey Jr. in the movie before the big fight. That was nice. Yeah, the opening of it is very impressive. You know, when they bring back Crossbones, who was in Winter Soldier, who's played by Frank Grillo. Good for Frank Grillo. He's having a nice little career on him, by the way, and kind of action movies and things like that. So good for him. You know, I think he would have been a good Punisher, but now that's kind of ship has sailed now. But you know, hey, I thought he would have been pretty good in that. Yeah, I would say for me for me, Nick, what would you kind of put it?
I would say S tier, purely because of the emotional stakes of this movie. This is, on paper, this is going to be another potentially world-ending thing, but also it's so small scale when you really think about it. It's just this infighting between the Avengers, and the airport fight scene, it's one of the greatest action set pieces in the Marvel Universe. Chris Evans once again delivering it as Steve Rogers, and again, just the greatest introductions to characters with Spider-Man and Black Panther.
Okay. I would say A, but outvoted, and this is going in S right here. Okay. So after that, we got Doctor Strange. Nick, where would you place Doctor Strange?
Doctor Strange is kind of in a weird spot for me. This is a movie that that is directed and written by two of my favorite people in Hollywood, Scott Derrickson, who's the director of stuff like Sinister, and C. Robert Cargill, who was his co-writer on that, and a lot of you know as formerly Carlisle on Spill.com. And this brought over one of the greatest working actors today, in Benedict Cumberbatch, in as the role of Doctor Strange. But I think on a movie as it's on its own, this is probably closer in the B movie for me. I think it hints at more emotional depth in the case of its villain with Mads Mikkelsen, but I think he doesn't get enough time to develop because this is an origin story and it's moving very fast for an origin film. I think Benedict Cumberbatch, he does a great job with what he's given, and it introduces possibly one of the greatest side characters in Marvel with Benedict Wong as Wong.
Kasim.
All right, so actually, this is gonna have to be my last one, sadly.
Aw, man.
Yeah, I know. F's in the chat for your boy. But definitely a B. Cumberbatch was amazing. I said his name wrong. I'm so sorry, homie. Don't cancel me on Twitter. But he was amazing. The visuals were crazy. I see why they changed the Ancient One, but it was still not as bad as the casting for Marvel, but I can live with it.
Yeah,
So
it's kind of a
solid
situation. Yeah, for me, it felt at the time it was kind of like a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation. But considering how amazing they did with the casting of Tony Leung as Wenwu and Shang-Chi, they could have done more. But I still love Tilda Swinton's performance.
Yeah. So for me, like you said, I like Scott Derrickson, I like Robert C. Cargill. The visuals are crazy. The visuals are great. You know, really open up more to the magic side of the MCU, which I thought was very impressive and very nice. And I thought that was very cool. And you said it introduces kind of Wong, you know, played by Benedict Wong, which is a very cool kind of character. Like the change they did with him, because in the comics he was kind of more of a manservant there, so they made a good change there. Tilda Swinton is the Ancient One. I think she's fine in the role. Obviously, maybe you could have got maybe somebody who fit the role maybe a little bit better, the description of the character, but you know, I think Tilda Swinton does fine in the role of the Ancient One. Benedict Cumberbatch, I mean, they said they purposely waited for him to be available so they can get him for Doctor Strange because they just believed he fit the character that much, and I think he does a good job in it. A lot of people...
he looks exactly like the character drawn in the comic.
Yeah. You know, a lot of people said this movie was also like Magic Iron Man, basically, kind of same origin story. You know, Dick, kind of rich guy, you know, gets humbled and then becomes a superhero, you know, and everything like that. But yeah, I still think it's an enjoyable movie. I would kind of go around the B level myself with it. You would say B or as well?
Yeah, I would say B as well. I think this is in my top 5. mostly just because of how much I enjoyed it. But I wouldn't put this over any of like the later ones. I'd still say this is a B movie for me.
B movie. Okay. Let me just find it right here real quick. Yep. Hold on just a second. Where do you have it here? Dang, where is it? No, I just saw
It
it.
looks like Kasim's out.
Okay. Yeah.
Right.
Thanks for Kasim.
Yeah, thanks to Kasim
here
for coming on. You can follow him on Instagram, caution or Kasim Ruffin. He's got a fight scheduled. He said sometime in January.
Yeah. Well, you
And
you asked him about the details. I'll put it in the description. Put a link to it and everything like that.
yeah,
I'll do that, and you can buy his merch, all that stuff like that. So yeah, thanks for him a lot for him for coming on. Really appreciate his help. Yeah, enjoyed having him on. Yeah. So all right. So yeah. So B there as well. So after that, we have Guardians of the Galaxy 2. James Gunn returning. What kind of your thoughts about this?
to me, I think this takes everything that I liked about it, and it improves on it massively. I think this is a much more personal and emotional story that they're telling in this film, especially with Peter Quill and the introduction of his father, Ego, the Living Planet, who's played wonderfully by Kurt Goddamn Russell. And for me, it's getting the emotional payoff of the arc that was introduced in the first one with Yondu and Michael Rooker, who is, for me, one of my favorite actors of all time, and he is incredible in this film as Yondu. And for me, this is a movie that every time I rewatch it, it gets to his funeral and I end up crying. This is probably the first Marvel movie I end up crying in.
Yeah. At first, Guardians 2, I wasn't very high on it at first when I first saw it, but the more times I've gone to it, I've liked it a lot more. I think it's very, very good. Like I said, Yondu, the whole relationship he has with Star-Lord is very good. The funeral scene is very good. Kurt Russell's Ego, the Living Planet is great. I mean, Kurt Russell's always fantastic. And so that was very awesome. I think some of the stuff here, introducing like Mantis, introducing the people that would eventually go on to make Adam Warlock. That's also kind of a big thing here. I think it has kind of like a little bit of that sequelitis thing where it tries to introduce all these different elements to set up for later, like the whole thing with the Ravengers, like with Sylvester Stallone, because this movie has like 4 post-credit scenes, like 4 kind of different after credit scenes.
Yeah, you could take any of the post-credit scenes in this and do a Disney Plus show.
Yeah, and this is where Michelle Yeoh showed up. So this is her first appearance in the MCU.
Yeah, Michelle Yeoh, Michael Rosenbaum. I didn't know this at the time, but the original the Galaxy in the comic.
Yeah, you kind of cut out there for when you kind of saying the names.
Yeah, Michelle Yeoh, Miley Cyrus, Michael Rosenbaum, and good old Rocky himself, Sly Stallone, as the original Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing a Disney Plus show with them. I don't know if they're ever going to return to that, because I know somebody asked James Gunn on Twitter, like, are we ever going to get a follow-up on that? And usually he responds on Twitter, to different people, like rumors and stuff like that. I don't think I saw him respond to that, but I would like to see a follow-up with that and everything, to see them kind of do a whole adventure, kind of like a little Disney Plus show. I wouldn't mind. I think somewhat, with the Dave Bautista character, as Drax, I think he's doing a little too much, you know what I mean, in the film, kind of being like trying to be too much of the comic relief. I thought it was fine the way he was, kind of being this guy, didn't understand metaphors, being kind of a funny straight man in a way. I think they kind of try to do too much with his character in the second one.
I think I agree with you, but I think Batista pulls it off. And it's kind of weird that out of all the guys to come over from WWE, he's probably the one who's ended up becoming the best actor out of all of them. Yeah,
very true. You see him in different stuff like Blade Runner. You know what I mean? He's got a good knack for dramatic stuff. And
Blade Runner, stuff like Army of the Dead, which
You cut out there again.
Yeah, stuff like Blade Runner 2049, where he's incredible. Stuff like Army of the Dead, which say what you will about that movie, I still think he's giving a great performance in that.
Yeah, I think it's solid. Dune, I think he does a good job in Dune as well. Yeah, I would give it personally. I would say A tier myself. What would you say?
I would give this an A tier as well.
Okay, so yeah, so A tier for that as well. Let's see here. Guardians of the Galaxy 2. Also, awesome soundtrack, by the way. Always with all these guys. Movies.
Yeah. Initially, when I first saw it, I think I liked this soundtrack a little less than I did for the first one, but honestly, it grew on me the more I listened to it.
Okay. All right. So after Guardians of the Galaxy 2, Spider-Man: Homecoming. Where would you place this one?
I would put this as a solid. I would put this as a solid A tier movie for me. I think again, this is something that was kind of needed for this take on Spider-Man. We needed a guy who's like a lot more, whose story is a lot more grounded and dealing with more of the street level stuff. And especially in contrast to a character like Tony Stark, Doctor Strange, Captain America, where they're going on these big epic adventures in all of their movies. And we're getting something more on the street level, more friendly neighborhood. Yeah, and also one of the best villain performances of Michael Keaton as the Vulture.
Yeah. Like I said, it's much smaller scale. It's him in the neighborhood. The Vulture is not trying to destroy the world. He's not trying to destroy New York. He's just trying to steal some stuff so he can make some money. Simple kind of thing going on. That's perfect.
Yeah, he's trying to make some money after getting screwed over by Tony Stark.
Yeah, another villain on the Tony Stark list.
Yeah, Tony Stark is like about 1 in 3 for fucking up Peter Parker's life.
Yeah, and Tom Holland as Peter Parker is great. I think he's a great Spider-Man.
He brings a charm and innocence that with the two previous actors, I put them in like a different category. It's kind of like how we've gotten Batman before. You have a guy who's either good at being Peter Parker, or you have a guy who's good at Spider-Man. I don't think we've had one who's good at both until like Tom Holland.
Yeah. So I think he does a very, very good job in the role. I like he's in high school with other people that look like high schoolers. He's not in it with a bunch of 30-year-olds.
Yeah, you're not getting like 35-year-old Joe Manganiello who looks older than all the teachers playing the high school bully.
Yeah, so you got that. Nice kind of people that round out the cast. Like, you have
you also don't have like 6 foot tall Andrew Garfield skater bro.
Yeah.
And suddenly he can't get no girls. Man, fuck off with that.
Yeah. But so I think it's perfectly good. Michael Keaton as the Vulture does a very good job. Zendaya. You have Hannibal Buress, who's like the high school gym coach, who's very funny.
One of my favorite offhanded jokes. It's like they're doing like the fitness challenge videos that you get in Cap in his old Avengers uniform. Is like, thank you, Captain America. Pretty sure he's a war criminal now, but it's required by the state.
Yeah, that was pretty funny. So it's nice kind of good humor in it. That's very kind of nice. I think works well in this movie.
And something that was cool, I think it was either this movie or Doctor Strange that started off the trend of going after these smaller scale indie directors, because this and Far From Home are both directed by John Watts, who, to my knowledge, his only movie prior to this was that indie film Cop Car with Kevin Bacon.
Yeah. Well, I guess you could say James Gunn was an indie kind of director before he did Guardians. Because he only did like kind of small stuff like Slither and things like that. And
I guess so.
Yeah. For me, I would say Spider-Man: Homecoming. I'd say high B. Maybe A. What would you say?
I would say high B as well.
Okay.
I do have some issues with a little bit of the over-reliance of CG with Spider-Man, especially because you look at behind-the-scenes stuff, and Tom Holland can do a lot of this.
Yeah. So I'd say, we're going to go high B for right now. So we're going to put it in front of Iron Man 3. on the B category for right now. Hold on. Yeah, there we go. Okay, all right. Next up is Thor Ragnarok. Where would you place Thor Ragnarok?
For me, this is an S tier movie. This is one of my favorite Marvel movies to watch. It's just so tightly written. The comedy beats. It's one of the funniest movies in the MCU, and I think a lot of that is owed to the direction of Taika Waititi, who is one of the greatest comedic minds working today off of stuff like What We Do in the Shadows, Hunt for the Wilder People, and Jojo Rabbit.
Yeah, I think when people say that, Marvel doesn't really have an identity, that they don't really let directors have much of a say. I mean, I still think Marvel obviously is in much control, and directors, they kind of come in and kind of do their thing, trying to work in their little space of what Marvel wants them to do. But I think very much like Taika Waititi with his humor. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think that critique is bullshit, first off. Also, I don't think if, say, Warner Brothers called Taika to do, I don't think they would have given him nearly as much freedom as they do with the Thor movie. Also, because this is kind of the film that saved the Thor franchise. Thor, for the longest time, he was kind of that character that everyone liked to look at, but there wasn't really anything special about films. And I think this is the one that the studio realized, hey, Chris Hemsworth is a really funny guy. What if we just made this as this kind of like Flash Gordon-esque comedy?
Yeah. And it worked. You know what I mean? And I think having Jeff Goldblum in there, as the Grandmaster really was great. Bringing in Tessa Thompson as Valkyrie, which was awesome. It's kind of weird that her name is Valkyrie, but she's also a Valkyrie. I don't know even if she has a actual name. They just call her Valkyrie.
I think she's credited as Brunhilde.
Oh, okay.
But everyone just calls her Valkyrie.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because I was like, that's kind of
and also underrated villain performance from Cate Blanchett as Hela, the goddess of death.
Yeah, great performance from her. I'm still hoping she may maybe make a return one day because she was great. I mean, it was kind of like, it was a little bit like what they did with the Guardians villain, where they knew it was kind of like a cheesy villain of her whole plan. It's like, I want to destroy him.
They know it's a cheesy villain, and they just allow Cate Blanchett to chew on all of the scenery.
Yeah, and she's absolutely great. I mean, she's one of the, I think, the better MCU villains that they've had, and she's absolutely great. Thor Ragnarok, let's see, I would go between an A and an S myself. What would you say?
This is a solid S tier for me. I absolutely adore this movie. This is on my... I think I end up rewatching this one like once every couple months.
Yeah. They also do try to bring in the World War Hulk storyline there.
This is probably as close as we're ever going to get to a Hulk movie while the rights are still kind of in flux. Because I think with Universal, they're still not allowed to do a solo Hulk movie.
Yeah, I heard something that said they're going to do another World War Hulk movie. They're going to do a World War Hulk movie. That's what I heard. That's what I read in something. So I'd say, okay, so we're going to move it to S. I could see S. That's fine. I could see S. And when we're done ranking all of them and putting them in the categories, we're going to rearrange them in their own like little category there real quick afterwards.
For sure. We've gone on for almost an hour and a half.
Yeah, I didn't expect to go on this long, but yeah, they got a lot of movies here. So we try to speed run.
Wow. Who knew that 23 movies could take so long?
Yeah. Let's speed run kind of through this as much as we can. So Black Panther.
Okay. All right, speed run. S tier for me.
S tier. Like the movie. Don't like the ending. I think kind of somewhat Black Panther gets a little overshadowed in his own movie by Killmonger. I think the
true, but I think for the story they're trying to tell, it works for the film.
Yeah. Some of the effects look pretty bad, especially towards the end. Like Chadwick Boseman's Black Panther. Like them introducing a new character. I think some of what Wakanda they show is kind of small scale. A lot of it is a little bit. And I do like the soundtrack. I love when Goran's in the score. The soundtrack is really great. I love the music. Like, that's kind of like synonymous with a lot of Black Panther stuff. It's like anytime they introduce a character for Wakanda, you hear that music playing, that do-do-do, do-do-do. You hear that, you hear that music playing. It's like, oh, shit, you know what I mean? Like, that's what happened. Falcon and the Winter Soldier, as soon as the Dora Milaje came on. You hear that music.
As the Dora came along, yep, there come them drums.
Yeah, so I thought that was pretty awesome. I thought that was good. So for me, but I still think it's kind of still, I think I would say B for me. I would say probably B for me.
Yeah, S mostly because you get, to this day, it's between him and Josh Brolin as, now it's him, Josh Brolin, and Tony Leung as the greatest villains in the MCU with Michael B. Jordan.
Yeah. So I'll compromise, go in the middle, A.
All right, A works for me.
Okay. Let's see here. Also, let's go. Avengers: Infinity War.
This is S for me as well. I remember being there opening night. I saw this movie 3 times in the theater, and every single beat of it works, even on rewatch.
Yeah, I would have to agree. This is, like I said, one of the few kind of MC movies I think is great, like with Captain America Winter Soldier. Awesome movie. Remember seeing it in theaters, packed theater. People were just, excited to see it. I remember this.
Yeah. One of the greatest times I've had in the theater. Everyone laughing. Time.
Yeah. And I remember it was funny because at the end where, Thanos, he does his mission, snaps, and then everybody's going away. And hey, how's it going there, X7? Hey man, how's it going? Thanks for coming by. And yeah, I remember in the theater when that moment happened, when the snap happened, and see everybody fading away. And I remember it was Black Panther, and I heard just one black dude go, "What the fuck? What the hell?"
Yeah, the friends I was with at the time, they say,
"No!" Yeah, it's like that was just like one of the great moments. The whole theater was just silent, and all you hear him go, "What the fuck?" Like, what the fuck? Yeah. So I thought that was pretty cool. Yeah, I mean, I think it does such a great job. I mean, Russo brothers coming to do it, and then how they balanced all the stuff they had to do with that movie, introducing all these characters, putting them all in here, and then it's like each it's like they separated into different squads. It's like, okay, you got your space squad, you got your Earth squad. You got your squad that's kind of like, gathering the people, helping them to safety, like, Captain America, and Iron Man up with the Guardians in space. And I thought that was kind of really well done and awesome. So, yeah, I would definitely say S tier here. Next up, we're going to have Ant-Man and the Wasp.
Ant-Man and the Wasp, I'd say it's a solid B tier. I think I like it a little more than the first Ant-Man movie. But... again, this is kind of like the palate cleanser in between Infinity War and Endgame.
Good that you just got to work X7. Hope you had a good day at work. Ant-Man and the Wasp, I think it's better than the first Ant-Man. I think they do more stuff with the shrinking, going small, going big. I think is much better. I like the addition of Lawrence Fishburne, was pretty nice. As Goliath, showing more of the history of like S.H.I.E.L.D., things like that. I did like the villain of Ghost. Hope to see her back, and maybe like a Dark Avengers scenario.
Yeah, maybe like a Thunderbolts thing going on.
Yeah. I'd give it B. I'd say B. B. All right. So after Ant-Man and the Wasp, we got Captain Marvel. Where would you?
For me, this is probably a C tier. I think the biggest problem this movie has is it doesn't give a. I don't think Carol Danvers is really well developed in her own movie. I think she starts off as the baddest motherfucker in the room, and she pretty much just stays there for the entire film. I think, but I don't blame that on Brie Larson at all. I think she's doing the best with what she's given. I just don't think that the two people writing and directing that film were the right fit. I am way more interested in seeing what Nia DaCosta does with her in the Marvel.
Yeah. With this movie, I think it's kind of a weaker movie. I'd say high D or low C. Kind of somewhere kind of in the middle there. I think, like you said, I mean, the '90s kind of aesthetic of it. They just kind of do a lot of kind of '90s references, '90s music. They do the worst thing a prequel could do. They kind of explain all this different stuff, like how Nick Fury lost his eye, and it contradicts stuff that we've already seen, like the whole Shield name. It's like in the first Iron Man, Shield, they weren't condensed to just Shield. Like they would say the whole name, but you know what I mean. But then they contradict that in the first Captain Marvel. I think Brie Larson, like you said, I think she's working with the best she can. I mean, this movie also had like a lot of writers on it. I think it had like 3 or 4 writers on this. Hopefully,
yeah. But then again, most Marvel movies do end up having like 3 or 4 writers. But this is the one where I think it shows the most.
Yeah. And the whole thing, like, I think it would have been cool, like a superhero Memento. That's kind of cool in concept. But the thing is, we already know who she is. So her finding out who she is isn't interesting because we already know she's a superhero. We already know her kind of, she's this pilot, whatever, blah, blah, blah. So it's kind of like, okay, this isn't really all that interesting. So I would say pretty much maybe high D. What would you say?
Yeah, I would say a low C. I still think the best part about this is Jackson as a younger Nick Fury and seeing his dynamic with Brie Larson, and also the twist of Ben Mendelsohn as the Skrulls. Which, come on, you get Ben Mendelsohn to play a villain.
Yeah. Yeah,
and that's kind of like just expectation subversion by casting that I think works really well for the film.
Yeah. So I'm gonna say so low, kind of low C here. Put it at the end here of that. Next up, we got Avengers Endgame. Where would you place this?
S tier. Just like with Infinity War, I think this gives the conclusion of that story, allows you to spend time with the characters that just by the nature of the kind of movie it is, kind of got the shaft in Infinity War. And you get to tell this like expansive emotional story that works for me every time I rewatch the film.
I would say high A or kind of middle A myself. Yeah, I think it's, like people say, well, it's like basically fan service. I'm like, yeah, I mean, basically, I mean, it's Marvel sucking its own D. I mean, it's just saying like, hey, you loved us for this long.
It's Marvel pulling a Joe Rogan.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much. I mean, because it's just, I mean, it's like, hey, it has all these callbacks to their movies, to Winter Soldier, to the first Iron Man, everything like that.
Calling back to stuff that was set up almost a decade ago, and to come out on Marvel's 10th anniversary, it's chef's kiss, bravo.
Yeah, and they said like, oh, the big battle at the end, and I was like, hey, when he said Avengers Assemble at the right moment when it just had to be said, and it was like, shit, you know what I mean? I was okay, that was exciting. I mean, it was theater reactions when that happened, when Captain America picked up the hammer, and when he did all that, it was kind of just like,
yeah. I saw this movie. I think I had like a AMC stubs at the time, so I could like see 3 movies a week. I wore that motherfucker out seeing this movie like 5 times.
Yeah. And they did kind of cheat though with the whole trying to make it the highest grossing movie of all time because they re-released it.
Yeah, that was some bullshit.
They did kind of cheat though, but they got it. I'd say, so you say S?
Yeah, I say S. This is a movie that if I rewatch it multiple times and I still cry at the exact same spots each time, it works. It's an S tier for me.
Yeah. I feel like this is the perfect closing chapter. Like, if you follow these things, it's like you don't have to watch any other Marvel thing. Like, if you didn't want to, I think you could close it out right here. If you're like, I'm sick of this Marvel shit, you probably just watch this, be done with it, and just be fine. Spider-Man, Far From Home, where are you placing it?
Spider-Man Far From Home, I think it's an A. I think, again, Tom Holland giving a perfect performance. This is kind of like the epilogue to the Infinity Saga, dealing with the fallout of Tony Stark's death and how that influenced Peter Parker as a hero and as a person. And also Jake Gyllenhaal as one of the best villains in the MCU in his Mysterio.
Oh, okay. Hey, thank you, by the way, Bunny, for the lurk. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thanks for stopping by. Spider-Man Far From Home. It's tough. I don't think it's as good as maybe Homecoming. I think maybe they're a little bit on the same level. I do like Jake Gyllenhaal as Mysterio coming in. I do like the developing relationship of Peter Parker and MJ. I think they're kind of right at the same level there for me. I would say maybe low A, maybe B with Spider-Man Homecoming myself. I'd say maybe B with Far From Home. And you said what? You said A?
Yeah, I said A. I enjoy this movie a lot. I love Tom Holland's portrayal of Peter Parker, especially something that we touched on in Iron Man 3, him dealing with the after of these Avengers level events.
Yeah. And then it does some funny stuff with the snap, like afterwards, like after that, of how everybody came back and people are older, and that was kind of very funny. I thought.
Yeah, it was played as a comedic bit versus something that we get in stuff like WandaVision or Falcon and the Winter Soldier, where it's treated with as much gravitas as something like that would deserve.
Yeah.
But I think because we're mostly following teenagers who are like kind of shitty and treat everything like that, it works for the tone that they're setting up in this movie.
Yeah. So I'll go low A. I'll go low A because all right. So now we're getting into the shows. WandaVision. Where would you place it?
WandaVision, I have issues with the ending, but besides that, I think this is A tier product. In an age where Marvel sometimes very fairly gets criticized for kind of being homogenous, a lot of it being the same thing. This took a swing into doing something experimental and different with playing around with different sitcom genres.
Yeah, I thought that was very inspired. They even had Dick Van Dyke come on and consult for the show, a guy who's a veteran of those type of sitcoms that they were aping and they were parodying. That was
filming the first 2 episodes with a live studio audience which is nuts to me.
Yeah, so they really tried to capture that style. Bringing in Monica Rambeau, an older version of her, I think it was very cool. Knockout performance. Who was the actress who played Catherine Hahn, who played Agatha Harkness?
Yes,
knockout performance.
Yes, a fucking star-making performance. And Catherine Hahn, who's one of the greatest working character actors, they give her the respect she deserves. And also, Agatha all along is a straight-up banger.
Yeah, very fun to listen to. So, and then Elizabeth Olsen gives her a chance to really act. Sometimes in these superhero movies, it's tough.
Yeah, just by the virtue of what the Avengers movie, they're big ensemble films, you don't get as much time to develop with some of the other characters. And Wanda, and Elizabeth Olsen, she nails it here. And Paul Bettany getting to show off his comedic chops as the Vision.
Yeah, and Paul Bettany, very good there. And how they transition from the history of TV, from where we are, from all the way back in the 50s to all the way now. They do the whole, The Office, you know what I mean, documentary style. I thought was very funny. And Paul Bettany, another guy who's got a talent for comedy, very much so. So I would say, I'd say the ending I don't like as much, kind of a weak ending.
I think a lot of it got cut, but mostly because I think this was the first one Marvel was able to COVID.
Yeah.
Because while this was in production, COVID was shutting down a lot of Hollywood, and I think this was the first one back that they were able to finish.
Yeah. So I give it A. I have no problem putting it A. I think it's very good. Very good performances there. Next up, we have Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Where would you place this?
Ooh. I absolutely adored this show. I give this a tier for me. Just purely of the thematic elements and just talking about race relations and modern politics in a way that I was not expecting the Marvel Universe to go there. And giving some of the greatest side performances and character introductions from characters like Carl Lumley as Isaiah Bradley and Wyatt Russell as John Walker. He's a fascinating character to watch. I think this show is spectacular.
Same situation with WandaVision a little bit, where I hated the ending. Didn't really like the ending all that much. Think it's kind of a weak ending. Like the combination of Sebastian Stan and Anthony Mackie. They had good, funny chemistry. You saw them when they were in Civil War, when they were in Winter Soldier together. Kind of good stuff there. And I thought that was really good. I like seeing Anthony Mackie become Captain America. Good to see he's going to get his own movie, not just another season of the show. So I think that's good. The Flag Smashers, good villains.
Yeah, the Flag Smashers are kind of weak. I think I think Erin Kellyman, I think she does a okay job of trying to give them depth, but I think the production was a victim of COVID as well, because I remember reading that there was a subplot involving like a virus that was ended up getting on the cutting room floor.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
And that virus subplot would have been an entire episode with the Flag Smashers.
Okay. Thank you, Javon Good, for the 100 bits. Thank you for coming in, man.
Thank you.
Much appreciated, man. Yeah, I mean, I think the Flag Smashers, I mean, this was a production also hindered by COVID, so they cut some episodes of this. So it feels kind of rushed, the stuff they did with them. It's like, okay, we got to make them clear villains so everybody knows how to hate them, so they just kill civilians, even though that contradicts all the stuff that they said before and did before about them protecting civilians. They have no problem now with killing civilians and them getting in the way. I was like, okay. So it's just obviously you got to make them the clear villains to root against. And everything like that. And like I said, the issues with the ending was just like the whole stuff with Isaiah Bradley. Like he gets a little statue in the back of the museum, stuff like that. I was like, okay, basic kind of, a posturing, there. I thought.
And it also doesn't help that Carl Lumley got snubbed by the Emmys, and they gave Don Cheadle the fucking nod.
Yeah, that was also weird. He's only in one episode, he's only in like one episode for like 5 minutes or something. I would say B for me. What would you say?
I give it a solid A. I love this show. I just rewatched the final episode last night. And that speech that Anthony Mackie gives towards a lot of the politicians at the end, that still hits me.
Oh, I think that's kind of corny myself. Thought that was really corny. But I'll say, okay, so low A. I'll give it a low A there. Okay, Loki, season 1.
Loki season 1 is, I'd say it's the highest point of the MCU tenure on Disney+. I think this is the show that everything that was kind of built up in WandaVision, as this is us going experimental. This is us playing around with different genres and introducing new concepts like the multiverse into the MCU. It does it perfectly. And for me, this is a solid S tier show.
S tier. I like Tom Hiddleston back as Loki. He's always great as the role. Like what they do with the expansion of the whole multiverse. Things like, having the whole kind of like this futuristic technology, but it looks old school. I think Owen Wilson does a great job in the show as well. I think when Loki meets the other versions of Loki is a great episode. I think this has the best ending out of all the Disney Plus shows.
Oh, yes. And something that I think the MCU should lean more into, the ending of this season, it's small scale. Well, it's a very like potentially world-changing event, but the focus is on this small conflict between Loki and Sylvie, who I think is played wonderfully by a Sophia DiMartino.
Yeah, I agree. So this one for me, Loki, I'd say great ending. Some would say between A for me. You said S.
Yeah, this is S. Also introducing us to Jonathan Majors as He Who Remains. One of the best cameos, and something that sets up the future of the MCU, because we know he is coming back as Kang the Conqueror.
Okay, so I'll say high A. Good with that? High A.
Yeah, I'm good with a high A.
Okay. Next, Black Widow.
This is a movie that the elements of it that really work, especially Florence Pugh's performance. I really like David Harbour in the movie, but this is probably a D for me in the MCU.
Yeah, I would agree. I like bringing in David Harbour, Rachel Weisz. I think this movie really is Florence Pugh's movie more than Scarlett Johansson's Black Widow. They should have did this movie right after Civil War. I mean, it was too little, too late. This
movie came out 5 years too late.
The whole thing with the villain. I mean, the villain. You don't really get a sense of the villain because he doesn't show up until the very end. I like the whole element of the sex trafficking kind of. Politics they kind of bring into it, but they don't I think it's kind of lazy a little bit in the movie. I think you could have really had a good hard punch with it, but it's just kind of like the whole thing with you just spray some dust in their face and they snap out of the mind control. I was like, okay, that's just kind of okay, whatever. That's kind of stupid and basic. I'd give it a high D, somewhere in kind of like at the D.
Yeah, I'd give it a high D. I think the biggest mistake this does is taking away a lot of Taskmaster. Yeah. Because in the comics he's a character that is basically Marvel's Deathstroke, and something that I think was a mistake was basically making him just making her a mindless drone. But I think there's room for that character to come back and get the development that it deserves, that she deserves.
Yeah. What if?
What if? I'd say B. I think like we said, where this is the MCU experimenting with different genres and different art style, but something that's more animated and something that is getting a spin-off, because we are getting Marvel Zombie on Disney Plus sometime in the near future. But I think I would have preferred it if all of these stories stayed separate. If this stuck to its gun as the MCU's Twilight Zone.
Yeah. It being all connected at the end. I would have much preferred not all the episodes had to connect with each other. Some of the stuff, I think some of the episodes were kind of weak, like Captain Carter episode. I didn't think it was all that good. I think when they start to get more experimental, because some of the episodes were just, well, what if just this other reverse situation happened? Like, what if Captain Carter was, the Captain America character and not Steve Rogers? What if, T'Challa was just Star-Lord? Even though I do really like that Star-Lord episode with T'Challa. I just thought that was kind of like a lot of the reverse of that. I would agree. And I would say kind of B for myself. I would say kind of somewhere low B.
I appreciate the balls that this show has, and I can't wait to see what they do with it too, because I've heard rumblings about do more stuff with the Guardians, do stuff with Shang-Chi and the Ten Rings in future seasons, stuff with the Eternals. The latter of Phase 4 have introduced some interesting concepts that I think What If can have a lot of fun with.
Yeah. All right. Shang-Chi.
This is a movie that, as an Asian American, it felt so good to be represented with this $200 million blockbuster, have it do so well at the box office, basically make a star-making performance from Simu Liu, who I think is one of the most charming characters, and this is probably one of the best introductions to a character that Marvel's done in a very long time. I absolutely love this film. I rewatched it last night. It hits just as well emotionally the second time. I do have issues with the ending and how it does go into this kind of big CGI fest, but I think it works more because you have this hugely emotional fight scene between Shang-Chi and Wenwu, and you have that very tearful goodbye that only an actor like Tony Leung could have pulled off.
Yeah. I agree, about the ending. Yeah, the ending just goes off the rails for me. I was like, this was a cool martial arts movie, and then you just had to do that ending, the big Marvel ending that we all talk about. It's just that kind of drops it down for me. One of the best action kind of scenes they have in this movie are some of the best in the entire MCU. Ranks right up there. I think Simu Liu is a great addition to it. I think he's great. He's got great comedic timing. I see why they picked him over someone like what was his name, Louis Tan. I see why they kind of did that, because he had more of a comedic background, being in Kim's Convenience. I would say star making performance from both him and Manger John. Oh, hey, thanks Javon Gill for playing the Afternoon Delight. Hey, thanks a lot, man. I would say, personally, it's B. I would say it's a B for me. You said S?
Yeah, I fucking adore this movie.
Okay, so in the middle, go A. In the middle.
All right, yeah, that works for me.
Okay, and the final, Eternals. Where are you putting that?
Eternals. This is a movie that I do have a lot of issues with, but at the same time, purely just because of the the ambition that it has with trying to tell this story about God and about faith, and doing it in a way that I don't think feels preachy in the least bit. I think for me, this is probably a B film for me. I understand a lot. I do have issues with the pacing of the film. I think it would have worked better if it was told more linearly, but the performances and some of the visuals of this, I think they managed to sell it.
This is this is the most recent Marvel movie directed by Chloe Zhao, Oscar-winning director, the first Oscar-winning director they've ever had directed a Marvel movie. I mean, you know, they're trying to bring in themes of existentialism, these kind of broader kind of themes she's trying to bring in here, deeper themes, and I think it struggles because you have 8 characters and you're trying to give some of them screen time and trying to develop them. Don't really think they really have much character in it, and it struggles with that. I think the length is also a problem, how long it is. I think some of it is kind of dull. I think that a lot of the action scenes also are not that good, not that interesting to watch. I think that also... I think as a lead character, Gemma Chan is really not all that interesting here. Like again, it goes about like what are these people's what are their characters? Like what's Gemma Chan's character all that much, and what's kind of purpose? And the whole kind of final kind of battle at the end, it's better than a lot of the other big battles that happened. It's not so overly cluttered. It's just that what was the exact execution of the plan that they had didn't really make a lot of sense. I'm not going to talk about it much because it's still out there, it's still fresh, but it was just kind of like I didn't really understand that plan all that much. For me, I'd say it's low C. C.
All right.
Low C. Okay, so that was it. So real quick, we're gonna just go through. This tier list doesn't have the posters for Eternals or Shang-Chi, so I couldn't put them on there. But just imagine that they're just up there real quick. So, so just gonna go up, rearrange it. So D, we have first Black Widow, Incredible Hulk, Iron Man 2, Thor 2. Do you want to rearrange any of that?
No, that works fine for me.
Okay. I would say Incredible Hulk is better than Black Widow. I'd say maybe Iron Man 2 is better than Black Widow. That's just me. And then I'd say Black Widow is probably better than Thor 2, but that's just me. But,
all right, yeah.
Okay, so that's just me. Next up, we have C. We have Thor, Age of Ultron, Ant-Man, Captain Marvel. Would you rearrange any of these?
I think I like Ant-Man a lot more than Thor, and Age of Ultron I'd put it above Thor as well.
I agree. I would say Thor is it better than Captain Marvel? I'd say I don't know. I think Thor is maybe I like maybe Captain Marvel slightly better, maybe slightly. But I don't know. I wouldn't fight you on it if you said Thor was better slightly, because I still go low C with Captain Marvel. B, we got Spider-Man: Homecoming. We have Doctor Strange. We have Iron Man 2. We have Ant-Man and the Wasp. We have What If. Also, I forgot with the C tier we have Eternals. So would you still keep Eternals the last spot?
I'd put Eternals probably below Age of Ultron.
Below Age. So okay, so it'd be between. Okay, so yeah, so there. Okay, so yeah, so Ant-Man and the Wasp, What If, and Shang-Chi at we put Shang-Chi B, right? Oh, A. We put it A, right? Or A?
Yeah, we put it at A.
Okay.
You said B, I said S, so we're kind of meeting in the middle at A.
Okay, so it's an A. So B is Spider-Man: Homecoming, Doctor Strange, Iron Man 3, Ant-Man and the Wasp, What If. You good with that?
I'd say Iron Man 3, then What If, then Far From Home, and then Doctor Strange and Ant-Man.
Okay, so Iron Man 3, What If, Homecoming, and then Doctor Strange and Ant-Man and the Wasp?
Yeah, that works for me.
Okay. All right, so A, First Avenger, Loki, Guardians of the Galaxy 2, Black Panther, Far From Home, WandaVision, Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and Shang-Chi.
I think for me personally, Black Panther, I think it's the top of A tier, then WandaVision, and everything, and then Loki, and then everything else is kind of just interchangeable.
Okay, so you said Black Panther, Loki, and then everything else is interchangeable.
Yeah.
Okay. I'd say low A would probably be maybe Falcon and the Winter Soldier would be low A. Also there, I'd say Shang-Chi is better than Far From Home. So
I would agree. I would agree with you there.
Yeah.
I enjoy Shang-Chi a lot more than I did Far From Home.
I enjoy WandaVision better than First Avenger. I'd enjoy Guardians 2 better than First Avenger. And then, so after First Avenger, so Black Panther, Loki, WandaVision, Guardians of the Galaxy 2, First Avenger, I would put... Actually, I like Shang-Chi better than First Avenger, honestly. So I'd move that over there. So Shang-Chi, then First Avenger, then Falcon and the Winter Soldier, then Far From Home. I'd probably have it like that.
All right.
S tier, Iron Man, Avengers, Captain America, Winter Soldier, Guardians of the Galaxy 1, Civil War, Thor Ragnarok, Infinity War, and Endgame. Would you rearrange?
I think the top of it is definitely going to be Winter Soldier. After that, I'd say Infinity War, Thor Ragnarok, and then everything else is interchangeable.
For me, I would go Infinity War 1. I think that was great. I would go Winter Soldier 2nd. I'd go Iron Man 3. And I would go maybe Endgame. After that, I'd go maybe the first Avengers, maybe.
All right.
I don't know. I think I like Guardians better than I like Avengers. First Guardians.
Okay.
Thor Ragnarok I like better than Civil War. Thor Ragnarok I like probably better than First Avengers. So Infinity War, Winter Soldier, Iron Man, Endgame, Guardians of the Galaxy, Thor Ragnarok, Avengers, and Civil War.
Yeah, that works for me.
All right. So that is our definitive tier list here, people. So just imagine like in the A tier, because it didn't have the poster for Shang-Chi there. Javon Good said Civil War tops Avengers. Okay, I would say
I think Civil War is definitely a better Avengers movie than First Avengers.
I'd say so. I'd do that, and then I'd say that. Okay, so then A with that one, just put. People just imagine that Shang-Chi is after. I know it's before First Avenger, and then with the B. Or with the C, just imagine that Eternals is after Captain Marvel. Did you like Eternals more than Captain Marvel?
I think so, yeah.
Okay, so Eternals is before Captain Marvel. Captain Marvel's there, yeah. Yeah, because I would say I liked Eternals more than Thor 2, Iron Man 2, Incredible Hulk, Black Widow, Captain Marvel. I think I would say I'd rather maybe watch those ones, maybe. Maybe. Yeah, all right. So we'll come back updated when the Hawkeye show comes on, and then when when Spider-Man comes on. So it'll be an ever-growing list here. So we worked it out. Yeah, awesome.
Yeah. What do you guys think of our tier list? How wrong do you think we are? Right? Do you think we are?
Yeah. Yeah. Took us almost 2 hours to do this tier list.